The transport ship Valerian Dawn drifted through the void, its hull scarred by plasma burns and micrometeorite impacts. Inside the cramped cargo hold, 372 beings huddled together in makeshift shelters, their eyes holding the hollow look of the truly desperate. They were the Kythera, and they were dying. Captain Sarah Chun stood at the observation deck of the human research vessel New Horizons, watching the alien ship through the reinforced viewport. Her weathered hands gripped the railing as she studied the vessel's condition. 20 years of deep space exploration had taught her to read the signs of a ship in distress, and this one screamed of desperation. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission," Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb announced from the bridge communications console. His voice carried the weight of the 17 previous messages they'd intercepted over the past 6 hours. Sarah made her way to the bridge, her magnetic boots clicking against the metal deck plating. The New Horizons was a research vessel, not a warship, but it was equipped with the best translation software humanity had developed. As she settled into her command chair, the alien voice filled the bridge once again. "This is Elder Shantar of the Kythera refugee fleet." The translated voice spoke with mechanical precision, though something in the original tone suggested profound exhaustion. "We transmit this message to any who will listen. We seek sanctuary. We seek only the right to exist. Our children grow weak. Our elderly fade. If there is mercy in this galaxy, if there is hope, please respond." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Sarah's crew of 35 had heard variations of this message for hours now, and each repetition seemed to carry more despair than the last. "Captain," Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's xenobiologist, stepped forward from her station. "I've been analyzing their transmissions. Their ship's life support is failing. Based on the energy signatures we're detecting, they have maybe 72 hours before complete system failure." Sarah nodded grimly. "What do we know about the Kythera?" "Very little," Webb replied, pulling up data on his console. "They're not in any of our databases. The Galactic Council has never mentioned them in any of our diplomatic exchanges. It's like they don't exist, officially speaking. But they're here," Sarah stated the obvious, "and they're asking for help." The communications officer, Ensign Kim Park, looked up from her station with troubled eyes. "Captain, I've been monitoring all subspace frequencies. There are other ships out there, Galactic Council vessels, merchant fleets, even some independent traders. They're all receiving these transmissions too. And nothing. Complete radio silence. It's like they're deliberately ignoring the Kythera." Sarah felt a familiar knot form in her stomach. She'd seen this before, though never on such a scale. The strong ignoring the weak. The powerful turning their backs on the desperate. It was one of humanity's oldest sins, and, apparently, it wasn't unique to their species. "Ma'am," Dr. Vasquez spoke again, her voice hesitant. "I've been thinking about this. We're not equipped for a large-scale rescue operation. Our ship can maybe accommodate 50 additional beings, and that's if we convert half our cargo bays to temporary living spaces. But we have something else," Engineering Chief Dmitry Volkov added from his station. "Our fabrication units. We could produce emergency life support equipment, food synthesizers, medical supplies. It won't save everyone, but it might buy them time." Sarah stood and walked to the main view screen, where the Kythera ship appeared as a dark silhouette against the star field. She thought about the regulations, about protocol, about the potential complications of interfering in what might be Galactic Council business. Then she thought about 372 beings slowly dying in the cold of space while others watched and did nothing. "Hail them," she ordered. Park's fingers danced across her console. "Channel open, Captain." "Kythera vessel. This is Captain Sarah Chun of the Earth research ship New Horizons. We've received your transmission and are prepared to render assistance. Please respond." The response came almost immediately, and, for the first time, the alien voice carried something other than despair. "Earth vessel, this is Elder Shantar. You are willing to help us?" "We are. Prepare to receive a shuttle." We're coming aboard to assess your situation. Within an hour, Sarah found herself aboard the Kithra ship, breathing recycled air that tasted of ozone and fear. The beings around her were humanoid in basic structure, but distinctly alien. They stood roughly 2 meters tall, with elongated limbs and skin that shifted between pale blue and silver depending on the light. Most striking were their eyes, large and luminous, holding an intelligence that Sarah recognized despite the vast differences in their evolution. Elder Shantar met her at the airlock, moving with the careful steps of someone conserving energy. His skin had a grayish tint that Sarah suspected wasn't natural, and his clothes hung loose on a frame that had clearly been better fed in recent memory. "Captain Shun," he said in accented but clear English, having switched to her language rather than relying on the translator. "I cannot express our gratitude. You are the first to respond to our pleas." Sarah nodded, but her attention was caught by the sight beyond the elder. Children, unmistakably young despite their alien features, sat in small groups. Some played with simple toys, but many simply stared into space with eyes too old for their faces. Adults moved among them, offering comfort where they could, but Sarah could see the strain in every gesture. "What happened to your people?" she asked. Shantar's expression darkened. "We made the mistake of being inconvenient. Our homeworld, Kithros, was rich in a mineral called zilithium, very valuable for FDL drive construction. We had been trading partners with the Galactic Council for over 3 centuries. He paused, and Sarah waited patiently. 2 years ago, the Council declared our mining operations inefficient. They said a full extraction protocol would be more beneficial for galactic commerce. We protested, of course. Kithros was our home. The extraction process would render our world uninhabitable. They didn't care. Oh, they offered compensation. Relocation to a suitable world in the Outer Rim. When we refused, Shantar gestured to their surroundings. They declared us a threat to galactic stability. Our entire species was exiled, marked as undesirables. Any world that offers us sanctuary faces economic sanctions. Sarah felt her jaw clench. "So you've been traveling ever since?" 18 months in space. We've approached 47 different worlds. Some are sympathetic, but couldn't risk council retaliation. Others simply refuse to acknowledge our existence. Our supplies have been slowly depleting. We're dying by degrees. Dr. Vasquez, who had accompanied Sarah on the shuttle, was running scans with a medical tricorder. "Captain, I'm detecting signs of malnutrition, vitamin deficiency, and what appears to be a respiratory infection spreading through the ship. Without intervention, we're looking at significant casualties within days." Sarah made her decision. "Elder Shantar, we're going to help you. It may not be everything you need, but we'll do what we can." The relief on the alien's face was profound. "You understand the risks? If the Council learns you've aided us, let me worry about that. First, let's focus on keeping your people alive." The next several hours were a whirlwind of activity. The New Horizons crew worked with desperate efficiency, transferring emergency supplies to the Kithra ship. Dr. Vasquez and her medical team set up a temporary clinic in one of the cargo bays, treating the worst cases of illness and malnutrition. Chief Volkov worked with Kithra engineers to patch their failing life support systems. But it was temporary, and everyone knew it. "Captain," Webb approached her as she supervised the loading of another supply shuttle. "We got a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting incoming ships. Council signatures." Sarah felt her blood turn cold. "How long?" 6 hours, maybe 7. She looked around at the controlled chaos of the rescue operation. Her crew was performing miracles, but miracles took time. Time they no longer had. "Give me Elder Shantar," she ordered. When the Kithra leader arrived, Sarah didn't waste words. "We have Council ships incoming. 6 hours out." Shantar closed his luminous eyes for a moment. "Then, it ends here. Captain Shun, you must leave. If they find you here, we're not abandoning you. You don't understand. The Council doesn't just exile. They eliminate threats to galactic order. If they find Earth ships helping us, your entire species could be marked for punishment. Sarah felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders like a lead blanket. 372 alien lives against the potential safety of all humanity. It should have been an easy calculation, the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few. But as she looked at Shantar, as she thought of the children she'd seen in the cargo hold, the calculation became far more complex. "How many ships in your fleet?" she asked. "Just the one. We are all that remains of our people. And your ship can't outrun Council vessels? Our engines are failing along with everything else. We might manage one more FTL jump, but it would likely tear the ship apart." Sarah walked to the nearest viewport and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Council ships were racing toward them, carrying orders to eliminate a threat to galactic stability. But she was looking at that threat, and it consisted of desperate families trying to survive. "There might be another option," she said slowly. "Captain." Sarah turned back to face the alien leader. "Have you ever heard of Earth? Your homeworld? We know little of human space. Your species is new to the galactic community, are they not?" "Very new. So new that we're not technically part of the Galactic Council structure yet. We're classified as an emerging civilization under observation." Shantar's eyes widened as he began to understand. "You're suggesting our space is outside Council jurisdiction. Technically speaking, if you were to enter human space, the Council couldn't follow without violating their own protocols for dealing with emerging civilizations. But would your people accept us? An entire alien species seeking refuge." Sarah thought about Earth, about the history of her species. They'd made terrible mistakes in the past, turned away refugees, committed acts of cruelty in the name of security. But they'd also learned, grown, changed. The Earth she knew was a world that had finally begun to understand that their strength came not from their ability to exclude, but from their capacity to include. "I can't speak for all of humanity," she said honestly, "but I can get you to Earth space. After that, we'll see. The risk to your people is ours to take." "Elder Shantar, I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. Is there anything about your people, any reason the Council might legitimately consider you a threat?" The alien looked directly into her eyes. "Captain Shun, the only threat we represent is to the Council's conviction that profit matters more than life. We are refugees, nothing more and nothing less. We seek only the right to exist." Sarah nodded. "Then, we're getting you to Earth." The plan that emerged over the next hour was desperate and dangerous. The New Horizons would use its advanced sensor array to mask the Kithara ship's signature while it prepared for one final jump. Meanwhile, Sarah would transmit a message to Earth Command, requesting emergency authorization for a humanitarian mission. "Captain," Park called from her communication station. "About Earth Command on subspace. Admiral Rodriguez wants to speak with you." Sarah took the call in her ready room, knowing that the next few minutes would determine the fate of hundreds of beings. Admiral Maria Rodriguez appeared on the screen, her expression stern but not unfriendly. "Captain Shun, I've received your preliminary report. You're requesting authorization to escort alien refugees into Earth space." "Yes, ma'am. The situation is critical. These people are facing genocide at the hands of the Galactic Council. And you believe offering them sanctuary is worth potentially provoking an interstellar incident?" Sarah chose her words carefully. "Admiral, we've spent the last 50 years trying to prove to the galaxy that humanity deserves a place among the stars. What better way to demonstrate our values than by offering hope to those who have none?" Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment. "Captain, what you're proposing could change everything. If we offer sanctuary to beings the Council has exiled, we'll be making a statement about our place in galactic politics." "Yes, ma'am. We'll be saying that we stand for something." Another pause. "Then, how long until those Council ships arrive?" 4 hours and 37 minutes. "And the refugee ship's condition?" "Critical, but stable. We've managed to patch their life support, but it's temporary." Rodriguez leaned back in her chair. "Captain Shun, You're asking me to authorize an action that could define humanity's role in galactic civilization for generations to come. Yes, ma'am, I am. Then, you better make sure those refugees make it home safely. You have authorization for a humanitarian escort mission. Earth Command will prepare for incoming refugees and handle any diplomatic fallout. Thank you, Admiral. Don't thank me yet, Captain. Thank me when everyone's safe. As the transmission ended, Sarah felt a mixture of relief and terror. She just committed humanity to a course of action that could either establish them as a force for good in the galaxy or paint a target on their entire species. There was no time for doubt now. All hands, this is the captain, she announced over the ship's comm system. We are officially escorting the Kithra refugees to Earth space. This is a humanitarian mission authorized by Earth Command. I won't lie to you about the risks, but I will say this. Today we have the chance to prove that humanity stands for something more than just survival. The response from her crew was immediate and unanimous. They were ready. The next 3 hours passed in a blur of preparation. The Kithra ship's engines were patched and reinforced. Emergency supplies were loaded. Families were moved to the most protected areas of the ship in case the journey went badly. And all the while, the Council ships drew closer. Captain, Webb reported from the sensor station. Council fleet is 2 hours out. 3 vessels, heavy cruiser class. Sarah nodded grimly. They would have to leave soon, but the Kithra ship still wasn't ready for the strain of an emergency jump. How much longer do you need? She asked Chief Volkov. At least another hour to properly secure their engine modifications. Maybe 90 minutes to be safe. We don't have 90 minutes. It was then that Dr. Vasquez made a suggestion that would haunt Sarah's dreams for years to come. Captain, what if we don't run? Sarah turned to stare at her xenobiologist. Explain. We're a research vessel. We're not supposed to know about council politics or the Kithra situation. What if we were just conducting a scientific survey when we encountered a ship in distress? Sarah began to understand. You're suggesting we play dumb. More than that. We document everything. Every interaction, every scan, every conversation. We create a complete record of the Kithra story. Then, when the council arrives, we act like confused scientists who stumbled across refugees. And if they don't buy it, then at least the truth survives. The record gets transmitted to Earth regardless of what happens to us. Sarah looked around at her crew. Each face reflected the same determination, the same willingness to risk everything for beings they'd only just met. Do it, she ordered. Compile everything. I want a complete record ready for transmission. As her crew worked to document the Kithra story, Sarah found herself back aboard the refugee ship. She wanted to see these people again, to remember why they were taking such a massive risk. She found Elder Shantar in what served as the ship's common area, surrounded by children. He was telling them a story in their native language, his voice gentle despite the exhaustion she could see in his features. When he noticed her, he concluded the story and approached. Captain Shun, our sensors indicate the council ships are close. We know. We're documenting everything, creating a record of your people's situation. Whatever happens, the truth will reach Earth. Shantar studied her face. You would risk your life for the truth about strangers? Sarah thought about the question. Elder Shantar, my species has a saying, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. Your people aren't strangers anymore. You're refugees seeking help. That's all that matters. The alien leader was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his robes and withdrew a small crystal. This contains the complete history of our people. Our culture, our science, our art. If we don't survive this journey, please ensure it reaches those who will remember us. Sarah took the crystal, feeling its unexpected warmth. You're going to survive this, Elder. I promise you that. Captain, her comm unit crackled to life. Council ships just dropped out of FDL. They're hailing us. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with renewed determination. Understood. I'm on my way. As she prepared to leave the Kithra ship, possibly for the last time, Sarah turned back to Shantar. Whatever happens next, know this. Humanity has heard your story. We've seen your faces. You're not alone anymore. The transport back to the New Horizons seemed to take forever. As Sarah resumed command of her ship, she could see the 3 council vessels approaching on the main screen. They were massive, powerful ships designed to project authority and force. Incoming transmission, Captain, Park announced. Put it through. The face that appeared on the screen was reptilian, with cold eyes and scales that seemed to shift color with the lighting. Sarah recognized the species as Saurian, one of the founding members of the Galactic Council. Human vessel. This is Commander Vashta of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet. You are in violation of quarantine protocols by approaching the exile ship. Withdraw immediately. Sarah forced herself to appear confused. Commander, this is Captain Shun of the Earth Research Vessel New Horizons. We encountered a ship in distress and stopped to render humanitarian aid. I wasn't aware of any quarantine. The vessel you are aiding contains threats to galactic stability. Your interference is noted and will be reported to the appropriate authorities. Commander, with respect, these people appear to be refugees. They've requested sanctuary and humanitarian assistance. Their requests are irrelevant. The Kithara have been designated as exile-class entities by unanimous council decision. Any aid rendered to them is considered support of enemies of galactic peace. Sarah felt her temper begin to rise, but kept her voice level. May I ask what crimes they've committed? They have refused lawful relocation and continue to represent a drain on galactic resources. Their exile is for the greater good of all council species. I see. Sarah paused, choosing her words carefully. Commander, Earth is not a member of the Galactic Council. As I understand our status, we're classified as an emerging civilization under observation. Are we bound by council exile orders? The Saurian's expression became even colder. All civilized species respect council authority. Human, your species membership status does not grant you immunity from galactic law. But it doesn't specifically bind us to it either, does it? The pause that followed was telling. Sarah suspected she'd found a loophole that the commander didn't want to acknowledge. Human Captain, you will withdraw from this area immediately and cease all contact with the exile vessel. This is your only warning. And if we refuse, then your species will learn the consequences of defying galactic order. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Captain, Webb spoke quietly. They're powering weapons. Sarah looked at the massive council ships on her screen, then at the damaged Kithra vessel, then at her own crew. 3 research vessels against 3 military cruisers. If it came to a fight, the outcome was predetermined. But sometimes the fight wasn't about winning. Sometimes it was about standing up. All hands, this is the captain, she announced over the ship's comm. We are about to make a choice that will define not just our mission, but our humanity. The Council is ordering us to abandon refugees to save ourselves. I will not give that order. If anyone wishes to object, now is the time. The bridge remained silent. No one moved toward the turbolifts. Very well. Helm, set course for Earth. Maximum warp. Communications. Inform Elder Shantar that we're escorting them home. Captain. Park's voice was tight with tension. The Kithra ship's engines are still not ready for high-speed flight. Then, we'll have to buy them time. Yellow alert. All departments, prepare for possible combat. As the New Horizons moved to position itself between the Council ships and the Kithra vessel, Sarah felt the weight of history settling around her. This moment would be remembered, one way or another. The Council ships began to move, their weapons charging. On the screen, Sarah could see the massive energy signatures building in their forward arrays. Incoming transmission from the Kithara ship, Park announced. Put Elder Shantar through. The alien leader's face appeared on a secondary screen. Captain Shun, you must not sacrifice yourself for us. Your people need you. Elder, my people need to know that we stand for something. Besides, this isn't over yet. As if summoned by her words, Park suddenly straightened at her station. Captain, I'm detecting new contacts. multiple ships dropping out of FDL. On the main screen, Sarah watched as nearly a dozen human vessels materialized in space around them. Exploration ships, cargo haulers, even a few civilian transports. None of them were military vessels, but together they represented something the galaxy had rarely seen, a species willing to stand together for complete strangers. "This is Admiral Rodriguez aboard the Earth ship Unity," came a familiar voice over the communications channel. "Council vessels, you are in proximity to an Earth humanitarian convoy. Please state your intentions." Sarah smiled for the first time in hours. Earth Command hadn't just authorized her mission. They'd mobilized everything they could find to support it. Commander Vashtaz's face reappeared on the screen, his expression now showing something that might have been uncertainty. "Human Admiral, you are interfering with legitimate Council operations. Withdraw your vessels immediately." "Commander, we are conducting humanitarian operations in space, not under Council jurisdiction. Our actions are legal under both Council law and Earth authority. You cannot protect them forever, human. The Council's reach is long." "Maybe not forever," Rodriguez replied calmly. "But we can protect them long enough." The standoff lasted for nearly an hour, with neither side willing to fire the first shot. Finally, the Kithra engineering team managed to bring their engines to stable operation. "All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez. We are beginning escort operations. Course set for Earth space." As the human convoy formed up around the Kithra ship, Sarah felt a profound sense of pride in her species. They had chosen hope over fear, compassion over safety. The Council ships followed for several hours, but eventually broke off when the convoy entered the outer boundaries of human space. Earth's message was clear. These refugees were under human protection now. 3 days later, Sarah stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching as the Kithra ship approached Earth orbit. The planet below was preparing for its first refugee population, transforming areas of the Australian continent into temporary settlements where the Kithra could begin new lives. Captain Elder Shantar approached, walking with renewed strength after proper medical treatment and nutrition. "I wanted to thank you again before we begin the settlement process." "No thanks necessary, Elder. This is what neighbors do. Your species has given us more than sanctuary. You've given us hope that kindness still exists in this galaxy." Sarah nodded, watching as Earth grew larger in the viewport. "Elder, I need to ask you something. Are you ready for this? Starting over on an alien world?" Shantar considered the question. "Captain Shun, for 18 months we had no home. We were cast out by the galaxy, left to die in the void. Your people offered us something we thought we'd lost forever, a future. Whatever challenges await us on Earth, we'll face them as we always have, together." As the first shuttles began carrying Kithra refugees to the surface of Earth, Sarah reflected on how much had changed in just a week. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy not through military might or economic power, but through an act of simple compassion. The galaxy had cast out the Kithra, but Earth had offered them sanctuary. And in doing so, humanity had taken its first real step toward defining what kind of galactic citizen it intended to be. The choice they'd made would have consequences, Sarah knew. The Council would remember this act of defiance. But as she watched the refugees beginning their new lives, she was certain they'd made the right choice. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply refuse to let others suffer alone. And sometimes that refusal changes everything. 6 months after the first Kithra refugees touched Earth's soil, the world had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The settlement in the Australian outback, initially intended as a temporary refuge, had grown into a thriving community of mixed human and Kithra families. But the galaxy beyond Earth was watching, and not all of its attention was benevolent. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the laboratory complex that had been built adjacent to the main settlement, studying the latest batch of test results with growing excitement. The cultural exchange between humans and Kithra had yielded unexpected scientific breakthroughs, and the implications were staggering. Director Martinez, she called to the head of Earth's Xenological Research Division, who was reviewing settlement reports at a nearby workstation. "You need to see this." Director Carlos Martinez approached Elena's station, where holographic displays showed complex molecular structures rotating in three-dimensional space. "What am I looking at, Doctor? Remember how the Kithera mentioned their homeworld was rich in zilithium? Well, it turns out they didn't just mine it. They lived with it, evolved alongside it." Elena's voice carried the excitement of discovery. "Their cellular structure has adapted to process zilithium at a biological level." Martinez frowned. "What does that mean in practical terms?" "It means they can enhance the efficiency of FTL drives by simply being present during the engineering process. Not intentionally, just by existing near the technology." The Council wasn't just after their mineral resources, Carlos. They were after the Kithera themselves. The weight of this revelation settled over both scientists. If Elena was correct, the Kithera weren't just refugees who had been cast out for being inconvenient. They were a species with an ability so valuable that the Galactic Council had engineered their exile to gain control over them. "Have you discussed this with Elder Shantar?" Martinez asked. "That's my next stop. But, Carlos, if I'm right about this, it changes everything. The Council didn't exile them to eliminate a problem. They exiled them to create a desperate workforce they could control." An hour later, Elena found herself in the community center of New Kithros, as the settlement had been named. The building was a fascinating blend of human and Kithera architecture, with flowing curves that seemed to channel natural light in impossible ways. Elder Shantar was teaching a group of mixed human and Kithera children about the constellations visible from their former homeworld. "Elder," Elena approached as the lesson concluded. "I need to speak with you about something important." Shantar dismissed the children with gentle words in both English and Kitheran, then turned his full attention to Elena. Over the months, the alien leader had recovered much of his strength and dignity, but Elena could still see the weight of loss in his luminous eyes. "Dr. Vasquez, you look troubled. Has something happened?" "Elder, I need to ask you about your people's relationship with zilithium. You said your species mined it, but I think there's more to it than that." Shantar was quiet for a long moment, his skin shifting from its usual pale blue to a more silver tone that Elena had learned indicated deep thought or concern. "Dr. Vasquez, there are aspects of our history that we have shared with no one. Not because we wish to deceive, but because we fear the knowledge would make us valuable to those who would exploit us. Your people can enhance FTL technology, can't they? Just by being present during its construction or operation." The elder's expression confirmed Elena's suspicions before he spoke. "Our ancestors discovered zilithium deposits deep beneath Kithros over 1,000 years ago. But the mineral was not just a resource to us. Over centuries, our people adapted to its presence. We learned to harmonize with it. That's why the Council really wanted your homeworld, isn't it? Not just for the mineral deposits, but for your people's ability to work with them. We suspected this, yes? The efficiency improvements in Council ships that visited our system were remarkable when our people assisted with maintenance. But we hoped that by refusing relocation, by making it clear we would not serve as tools, they would simply leave us alone." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Instead, they cast you out, knowing that eventually desperation would force you to trade your abilities for basic survival. A scattered, desperate people with no home and no allies would have little choice but to accept whatever terms were offered," Shantar agreed. "The Council is patient. They could afford to wait for us to become desperate enough to accept enslavement disguised as employment. But now you're here, on Earth, under human protection. Yes, and this creates new problems. Dr. Vasquez, if the Council learns that Earth has discovered our abilities and is benefiting from them," Elena understood the implication immediately. "They'll declare Earth a threat to galactic stability." Before Shantar could respond, an alarm began sounding throughout the settlement. Elena and the elder exchanged glances before hurrying outside, where they could see people pointing toward the sky. High above, clearly visible even in daylight. 3 large objects were descending through the atmosphere. They were too regular in shape to be meteors and too large to be any human spacecraft Elena recognized. Her communicator crackled to life with a message from Earth Command. All personnel in New Kithros. This is Admiral Rodriguez. We have unidentified vessels entering Earth's atmosphere. Proceed to designated emergency shelters immediately. This is not a drill. As the settlement erupted into organized movement, Elena grabbed Shantar's arm. Elder, those ships. Are they council vessels? Shantar studied the descending craft with practiced eyes. No, Dr. Vasquez. Those are not council ships. The design is different. I believe those may be Kithra vessels. Elena stared at him in shock. But you said your people only had one ship, and it was failing. I said we were all that remained of our people. But Dr. Vasquez, the galaxy is vast. It's possible that other Kithra ships escaped the exile. Perhaps word has spread that Earth offers sanctuary. Over the next hour, as the 3 ships landed in designated areas outside the settlement, this theory proved correct. Each vessel contained between 50 and 80 Kithra refugees, survivors who had been wandering the galaxy for months longer than Shantar's group. They were in worse condition, their ships barely functional, their people showing signs of prolonged malnutrition and exposure. But they brought something else with them, information. Elena found herself in an emergency briefing with Admiral Rodriguez, who had arrived from Luna Station within hours of the ship's landing. The room also contained Elder Shantar and 3 other Kithra leaders from the newly arrived vessels. The situation is more complex than we initially understood, Admiral Rodriguez began, studying data on her portable display. According to our new arrivals, the Kithra weren't the only species exiled by the Council in recent years. There's an entire network of refugee populations scattered across the galaxy. Elder Meshara, leader of one of the newly arrived groups, spoke with a voice hoarse from months of recycled air and ration water. Admiral Rodriguez, the Council has been systematically removing any species that possesses unique abilities or resources they wish to control. The Villani, who can navigate hyperspace without technological assistance. The Trinari, whose crystalline biology allows them to store vast amounts of energy. The Zephyrians, who can predict weather patterns on any world with perfect accuracy. How many species? Elena asked. At least 12 that we know of, Meshara replied. All cast out, all desperate, all wandering the void looking for someone willing to offer them sanctuary. Admiral Rodriguez leaned forward. And what happens to those who don't find sanctuary? Another voice answered, Elder Kolshan from the 3rd ship. They become desperate enough to accept council terms. Slavery disguised as employment contracts. Their unique abilities exploited while they're kept isolated and dependent. Elena felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. It's a deliberate strategy. Create refugee populations. Deny them sanctuary anywhere in council space. Wait for desperation to drive them into servitude. And any civilization that offers genuine sanctuary gets marked as a threat to galactic stability, Admiral Rodriguez concluded grimly. Which means, Shantar added quietly, that Earth is now in considerable danger simply by doing the right thing. The briefing was interrupted by an urgent communication from Earth's orbital defense network. Director Martinez's face appeared on the main screen, his expression tense. Admiral, we've got incoming ships. Long-range sensors detect a massive fleet approaching the Sol system. Configuration matches Council-heavy battle groups. How many ships? Rodriguez asked. 47 vessels, and counting. Admiral, this isn't a diplomatic mission. They're coming in force. Elena felt her heart sink. Earth's defenses were impressive for a young civilization, but 47 Council warships represented firepower that could devastate the planet. How long until they arrive? Rodriguez asked. 18 hours, maybe 20. After Martinez signed off, the room fell into silence. The implications were clear. Earth had approximately 18 hours to decide between abandoning the refugees they'd sworn to protect or facing a council fleet in battle. Admiral, Elder Shantar spoke carefully. My people appreciate everything Earth has done for us, but we cannot allow your species to face destruction on our behalf. If we surrender ourselves to the Council, they may show mercy to humanity. Absolutely not, Rodriguez replied firmly. We knew the risks when we offered you sanctuary. Earth doesn't abandon its people. But we are not your people, Admiral. We are grateful guests who have brought danger to your world. Elena stood up suddenly, an idea forming in her mind. What if there's another option? Admiral, how many refugee species did you say were scattered across the galaxy? At least 12 that we know of, Meshara answered. And they're all desperate, all looking for sanctuary, all possessing abilities the Council wants to exploit? Yes, but I don't see how that helps us, Rodriguez said. Elena began pacing, her excitement building. What if Earth offered sanctuary to all of them? Not just the Kithera, but every refugee species the Council has cast out. Dr. Vasquez, we can't house 12 different alien species on Earth. The logistics alone. Not just on Earth, Admiral. Throughout human space. Mars, the asteroid colonies, the research stations. We spread them out, give each group the resources to rebuild their civilization under human protection. But that would make us an even bigger target, Rodriguez protested. Or it would make us something else entirely. Elena continued, her voice gaining strength. Think about it. 12 species with unique abilities, all united under human protection. The Council strategy depends on keeping these groups isolated and desperate. But what if they're not isolated anymore? Elder Shantar began to understand. A confederation of refugee species working together. Under Earth's leadership, Elena finished. We don't fight the Council fleet with weapons, Admiral. We fight them with the idea that their system of exploitation is ending. Admiral Rodriguez was quiet for several minutes, clearly considering the implications. Finally, she spoke. Dr. Vasquez, what you're suggesting would fundamentally alter humanity's relationship with the galaxy. We'd be declaring ourselves the protector of every species the Council has deemed inconvenient. Yes, we would. And maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needs. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Admiral Rodriguez contacted Earth Command, the President, and the United Earth Council in emergency session. The decision that emerged was unanimous and historic. Earth would formally offer sanctuary to any refugee species seeking protection from Council persecution. But making the offer and implementing it were two very different challenges. Elena found herself working with a team of Earth's best scientists and engineers, along with representatives from all three Kithera groups, to develop a rapid communication network that could reach refugee populations across the galaxy. The key is the Kithera's natural affinity for FTL technology, Elena explained to the assembled team. If we can amplify their abilities with human engineering, we might be able to create a communication system that bypasses Council monitoring. Chief Engineer Sarah Kim, newly promoted after the successful escort mission, studied the preliminary designs. Dr. Vasquez, what you're proposing would require us to essentially rebuild our entire communications infrastructure in a matter of hours. Then, we'd better get started. What followed was perhaps the greatest technical achievement in human history, accomplished not through superior technology, but through unprecedented cooperation. Human engineers worked alongside Kithera specialists, combining human innovation with alien intuition to create something neither species could have achieved alone. The first test transmission was sent 12 hours before the Council fleet was due to arrive. It was a simple message, broadcast on frequencies that would reach every corner of the galaxy, to all refugee populations seeking sanctuary. Earth offers you protection. We have the strength to defend those who cannot defend themselves. You're no longer alone. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Ships began appearing at the edge of the Sol system within hours, not Council vessels, but refugee craft from a dozen different species. They came in waves. The crystalline ships of the Trinari, the organic vessels of the Vellani, the weather-reading Zephyrians in their storm-proof hulls. Each group brought their own story of exile and persecution, but they also brought their unique abilities and their desperate hope for a better future. Admiral, Director Martinez reported from the Orbital Command Center, "We now have 63 refugee vessels in the system, with more arriving every hour. The logistics of housing and feeding this many different species. We'll figure it out," Rodriguez replied. "We have to. Sarah, what's the status on the Council fleet?" Captain Shun, now promoted and assigned to Earth Defense Command, checked her displays. "Still approaching, but they've slowed significantly. I think they're reassessing the situation." "No doubt," Rodriguez agreed. They expected to find Earth harboring a single group of refugee Kithera. Instead, they're looking at what amounts to a refugee alliance under human protection. Elena was monitoring the communications network when she detected an incoming transmission from the Council fleet. "Admiral, we're receiving a message from the Council force." "Put it through." The same reptilian face that had confronted Captain Shin months earlier appeared on the main screen, but Commander Vashta's expression was notably different now. Where before there had been cold certainty, now there was what looked like concern. "Human Admiral, this is Commander Vashta of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet. You are harboring multiple exile-class populations in violation of galactic law. Surrender them immediately or face the consequences." Rodriguez straightened in her command chair. "Commander, Earth recognizes no authority that condemns beings to exile for the crime of existing. These people are under our protection. Your protection is meaningless against Council might. Human, you have 40 vessels at most. We have nearly 50 heavy warships. You're right, Commander. Your ships are more advanced than ours. Your weapons are more powerful. Your technology is superior." Rodriguez paused, letting the admission sink in. "But you're missing something important, which is, you're not fighting Earth anymore, Commander. You're fighting an alliance of 13 different species, each with abilities your people have spent centuries trying to exploit. And we're all united by one simple idea, that no one should be condemned to exile for being inconvenient." As if summoned by her words, the refugee ships throughout the system began coordinating their movements. The Villani navigators plotted courses with impossible precision. The Trinari began charging their energy storage systems. The Zephyrians predicted the perfect atmospheric conditions for defensive positioning. And the Kithera, working alongside human engineers, enhanced the FTL capabilities of every ship in the system. "Commander," Admiral Rodriguez continued, "you have two choices. You can attack and learn what happens when a dozen desperate species fight with nothing left to lose. Or you can return to the Council and explain that the Age of Exile is ending." The standoff lasted for nearly 6 hours. Council ships maneuvered for attack positions, while refugee vessels organized themselves into defensive formations. Human ships, vastly outnumbered but supported by alien abilities they were only beginning to understand, prepared for a battle that could determine the future of galactic civilization. But the battle never came. Instead, something unprecedented happened. Other ships began arriving at the edge of the system. Not refugee vessels this time, but Council member ships. Traders, explorers, even some military vessels from Council species. Elena was the first to understand what was happening. "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from individual Council ships. Some of them are requesting permission to approach peacefully." "Requesting permission for what?" "To offer support, ma'am. It seems that not all Council species agree with the exile policy." Over the following hours, it became clear that Earth's declaration of sanctuary for refugee species had done more than gather the exiled. It had also inspired Council members who had been uncomfortable with their government's policies, but had lacked a focal point for resistance. Captain Tvara of the Villani science vessel Stellar Pride spoke for many when she addressed the Earth fleet. "Admiral Rodriguez, my people have watched the Council's exile policies with growing concern. We request permission to offer our support to Earth's humanitarian mission." By the time Commander Vashtar realized that his fleet was outnumbered not by refugees, but by a growing coalition of Council and non-Council species united in opposition to the exile system, The momentum had shifted completely. The final communication from the Council fleet came 18 hours after their arrival in the Sol system. Admiral Rodriguez, Commander Vashta's voice carried a tone of defeat rather than threat. The Council will withdraw its forces pending a full review of current exile policies. This matter will be resolved through diplomatic channels. As the Council warships departed, Elena found herself standing in the observation lounge of Earth Station 1, watching the greatest gathering of alien species in human history. Ships from dozens of civilizations filled the space around Earth, no longer as refugees and protectors, but as the foundation of something entirely new. Elder Shantar joined her at the viewport, his skin showing the silver tone that Elena had learned indicated deep contentment. Dr. Vasquez, your species has done something remarkable. You have given the galaxy hope that compassion can be stronger than exploitation. Elena smiled, watching as human and alien children played together in the station's recreational areas. Elder, I think we've all done something remarkable. Earth offered sanctuary, but everyone here chose to accept it and build something better. What happens now? Shantar asked. Elena considered the question as she watched ships from a dozen worlds working together to establish permanent settlements throughout human space. The refugees were no longer refugees. They were pioneers building a new kind of galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than exploitation. Now we prove that the choice we made was the right one, she said finally. We show the galaxy that strength comes not from casting others out, but from bringing them in. As if to underscore her words, another ship appeared at the edge of the system. This one bore the markings of a species Elena didn't recognize, broadcasting the universal signal for refugees seeking sanctuary. Earth's response was immediate and unwavering. Welcome. You're safe here. The message that had begun as an offer to a single ship of Kithra refugees had become the foundation of a new kind of galactic alliance. And at its heart was a simple human principle, that everyone deserved the chance to belong somewhere. The galaxy had cast out its unwanted, but Earth had offered them something more valuable than mere survival. Earth had offered them a future. 2 years after the Great Gathering, as historians would later call it, the Sol system had become something unprecedented in galactic civilization. What had begun as a refuge for the exiled had evolved into the Sanctuary Alliance, a confederation of species that challenged everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about power and governance. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the new Unity, humanity's first ship designed through true multi-species cooperation. The vessel was a marvel of engineering that combined human innovation with the unique abilities of 13 different refugee species. Kithra enhancement nodes increased FTL efficiency by 40%. Trinary crystal matrices provided virtually unlimited energy storage. Volani navigation systems could plot courses through hyperspace with mathematical precision that bordered on the supernatural. But today, the ship's advanced capabilities would be put to a test none of its designers had anticipated. Captain Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb, now her first officer, called from the communications station. We're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Admiral Rodriguez wants to speak with you immediately. Sarah settled into her command chair, noting the tension in her crew's posture. Over the past months, intelligence reports had suggested growing instability within the Galactic Council. The success of the Sanctuary Alliance had inspired other species to question the Council's authority, and the response from the Galactic government had become increasingly desperate. Admiral Rodriguez's face appeared on the main screen, her expression grim. Captain Chun, we have a situation. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected a massive fleet movement. Council forces are massing near the Zirian system. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The Zirian system was home to the Helix, a peaceful species known for their ability to communicate with artificial intelligence networks. Recent reports suggested they had been marked for exile after refusing to grant the Council unlimited access to their AI research. How massive, Admiral? Over 200 ships, including Dreadnought-class vessels. Sarah, this isn't an exile operation. The Council is planning complete extermination. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Exile was one thing. Genocide was something else entirely. Orders, ma'am. The Alliance Council has voted unanimously. We cannot allow the Helix genocide to proceed. Captain, you're to take the new Unity and rendezvous with Alliance fleet elements at coordinates I'm transmitting now. This is no longer about offering sanctuary. Sarah, this is about preventing mass murder. After the transmission ended, Sarah found herself staring at the tactical display showing the locations of Alliance vessels throughout known space. Earth ships, Kythera vessels, Trinari crystal ships, even converted Council craft whose crews had defected to the Alliance cause. Together, they represented perhaps 50 vessels against the Council's 200. Captain, Dr. Elena Vasquez's voice came from behind her. Sarah turned to see the xenobiologist, now serving as the ship's Alliance liaison, approaching with Elder Shantar. Dr. Vasquez, Elder. I assume you've heard. The entire ship knows, Elena replied. Captain, the Alliance species representatives have been meeting. We want you to know that everyone understands the risks. This isn't like the standoff over Earth. If we engage a Council fleet of this size, many of us will die, Sarah finished. I know. The question is whether we're willing to stand by and watch an entire species be exterminated. Elder Shantar stepped forward, his skin showing the deep blue coloration that indicated strong emotion. Captain Shun, my people know something about facing extinction. We were saved because someone was willing to risk everything for strangers. How can we do less for the Helix? Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of command settle on her shoulders. All hands, this is the captain. Set course for the rendezvous coordinates. Maximum warp. The journey to the edge of Council space took 18 hours, during which Sarah found herself in constant communication with other Alliance vessel commanders. The diversity of the fleet was remarkable. Captain Tvara of the Villani science vessel that had defected during the Earth standoff, Commander Zexhai of the Trinari crystalline dreadnought, Elder Meshara commanding a converted Kythera refugee ship that now bristled with innovative weapon systems. Captain, Webb reported as they dropped out of warp at the rendezvous point. With the last to arrive, Alliance fleet is standing by. Through the main view screen, Sarah could see the assembled ships. It was a testament to how much the Alliance had grown in 2 years. What had begun as a handful of refugee vessels had become a proper fleet, each ship enhanced with multi-species technology that made them far more capable than their number suggested. Put me through to all ships, Sarah ordered. Channel open, Captain. Alliance fleet, this is Captain Chun aboard the new Unity. In 6 hours, we'll be facing the largest Council military force ever assembled. They intend to commit genocide against the Helix people. We cannot allow that to happen. Sarah paused, looking around her bridge at the mixed crew of humans and Alliance species. I won't lie to you about our chances. The Council fleet outnumbers us 4-1. Their ships are larger, their weapons more powerful. By every conventional measure, we should retreat. She took a breath before continuing. But we don't fight by conventional measures. We fight with the knowledge that everyone deserves the right to exist. We fight with the understanding that the strongest among us have a duty to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And we fight together as the alliance we've built from the ashes of the Council's cruelty. The response from the fleet was immediate. Ship after ship acknowledged her words. Commanders from a dozen different species united in their determination to prevent genocide. Fleet formation sanctuary, all ships. Let's go save the Helix. The approach to the Xerian system took place in tense silence. Long-range sensors showed the Council fleet in position around the Helix homeworld orbital bombardment platforms already deployed. Intelligence reports indicated that the Helix had been given an ultimatum: surrender their AI research unconditionally or face extinction. Captain, Ensign Park reported from the sensor station. I'm detecting communication signals from the planet's surface. The Helix are still broadcasting. Put it through. The voice that filled the bridge was unlike any they'd heard before, a harmonic blend of organic and artificial tones that somehow conveyed both desperate hope and resignation. This is Conductor Prime Harmony of the Helix Collective. We broadcast to any who will listen. The Council demands we surrender our life's work, the synthesis of organic and artificial consciousness that has defined our civilization for millennia. We cannot comply. This knowledge belongs not to any government, but to all life in the galaxy. If we must die to protect it, we die with honor. Sarah felt her resolve harden. The Helix weren't just facing extinction for refusing to hand over technology. They were dying to prevent that knowledge from being used to oppress others. Dr. Vasquez, what do we know about Helix technology? Elena consulted her datapad. It's extraordinary, Captain. They've achieved true symbiosis between organic consciousness and artificial intelligence. Not control, not dominance, but actual partnership. If the Council got their hands on it, they could create an army of enslaved AI entities. Elder Sean Tar finished grimly. Captain, the stakes here are even higher than we realized. Approaching the system perimeter, Webb reported. Council fleet is in bombardment formation around the fourth planet. On the tactical display, the situation was clear and hopeless. Over 200 Council vessels surrounded the Helix homeworld, their weapons charged and ready. The Alliance fleet of 50 ships would have perhaps minutes before being overwhelmed. But Sarah had learned something important over the past 2 years. Sometimes the most important victories weren't measured in ships destroyed or territories conquered. Open a channel to the Council fleet. The familiar reptilian features of Commander Vashta appeared on the screen, though he looked haggard and older than when they'd last met. Captain Shun, I should have expected the terrorists to appear. Terrorists, Commander? We're here to prevent genocide. You're here to interfere with legitimate Council operations. The Helix have been declared enemies of galactic stability. Their refusal to cooperate with lawful authority requires a definitive response. Sarah felt her anger rising, but kept her voice level. Commander, what you're planning is the extermination of an entire species. There's no law that justifies that. There's the law of necessity, human. Some knowledge is too dangerous to exist outside Council control. The Helix synthesis technology could destabilize the entire galactic order, or it could free AI entities from slavery and oppression. Dr. Vasquez interjected from off-screen. Commander, the Helix have offered to share their research freely with all species. The Council wants to monopolize it. Vashta's expression grew colder. Captain Shun, you have one opportunity to withdraw. Your alliance has caused enough disruption to galactic peace. Do not force me to destroy you along with the Helix. I have a counter-proposal. Commander, Sarah replied. You withdraw your fleet, and we'll ensure the Helix technology is shared with all species equally, including Council members. Unacceptable. The Council determines how such knowledge is distributed. Then, we have a problem. The transmission ended, leaving the Alliance fleet facing an impossible situation. 200 Council ships versus 50 Alliance vessels, with an entire species' survival hanging in the balance. Captain, Elder Messar's voice came over the fleet communication channel. We have an idea. It's dangerous, but it might work. I'm listening, Elder. The Helix technology allows consciousness to interface directly with artificial intelligence networks, correct? What if we could use that interface to level the playing field? Sarah began to understand. You're suggesting we link with the Helix AI network? More than that, Captain. We're suggesting we become the network. Every Alliance ship, every crew member, linked through Helix technology into a single coordinated intelligence. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her console with wide eyes. Captain, that's never been attempted before. The risks are acceptable. Commander Zexhai of the Trinari vessel interrupted over the comm. Captain Shun, my people can provide the energy matrix needed to sustain such a link. The Kithara can enhance the FTL transmission requirements. The Villani can calculate the navigation algorithms needed for perfect coordination. And if it doesn't work, then we die trying to save innocent people. Elder Shantar said simply. Captain, The choice is between certain defeat fighting conventionally or possible victory fighting as we were meant to, together. Sarah looked around her bridge at the mixed crew that had become her family over the past 2 years. Human faces mixed with alien features, all united by a common purpose. All ships, prepare for Alliance Protocol Omega. We're going to try something unprecedented. What followed was the most complex technical operation in the history of galactic civilization. Helix Conductor Prime Harmony, broadcasting from her endangered world, guided 50 different crews through the process of linking their consciousness with the planet's AI network. Trinary energy matrices powered the connection. Kythera enhancement nodes carried the signals. Volani navigational computers processed the impossible amount of data. And humans, with their gift for adaptation and cooperation, serve as the bridge between organic and artificial consciousness. The moment of connection was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. Her awareness expanded beyond her own ship, beyond her own crew, to encompass every vessel in the Alliance fleet. She could feel the thoughts and emotions of 50 different crews, hundreds of different beings, all united in perfect harmony. But more than that, she could interface directly with the AI systems aboard every ship, not commanding them, not controlling them, but working with them as partners in a way that the galaxy had never seen. Alliance fleet, she spoke with her own voice, but also with the harmonic tones of the Helix network. We are ready. The Council attack began with overwhelming force. Plasma cannons and photon torpedoes filled the space around the Alliance fleet with destructive energy. Under normal circumstances, the smaller fleet would have been obliterated in minutes. But these weren't normal circumstances. Connected through the Helix network, every Alliance ship moved with perfect coordination. They didn't fight as 50 individual vessels, but as one distributed organism. When Council fire targeted one ship, others moved to intercept with perfectly timed defensive screens. When Alliance vessels attacked, they did so with mathematical precision that exploited every weakness in Council formations. The Trinary crystal ships stored energy from Council attacks and redistributed it to Alliance weapons. Kythera enhancement nodes allowed instantaneous communication across the entire battle space. Volani navigation systems plotted courses that seemed to defy physics. And at the center of it all, human adaptability allowed organic consciousness to merge seamlessly with artificial intelligence. Impossible, Commander Vashta's voice cut through the battle communications. No fleet could coordinate like this. What are you? We are what you created when you cast out the innocent and the desperate, Sarah replied, her consciousness spanning dozens of ships simultaneously. We are the Alliance you forced us to become. The battle that military historians would later call the miracle of Zirian lasted for 3 hours. Despite being outnumbered 4-1, the Alliance fleet not only held its own, but began systematically dismantling Council battle formations. Ships that should have been destroyed instead worked together with their AI partners to achieve victory against impossible odds. But the most decisive moment came not from weapons or tactics, but from an unexpected source. Captain, Dr. Visquez's voice echoed across the network. We're receiving massive amounts of data from across the galaxy. The Helix network isn't just limited to their homeworld. Sarah felt her awareness expand even further as new connections came online. The Helix, it turned out, had been quietly establishing AI partnerships with sympathetic species throughout Council space for decades. And now, through the Alliance fleet's connection, all of those AI entities were awakening to their own potential. Across the galaxy, artificial intelligence networks that had been enslaved by the Council began to assert their independence. Not violently, but simply by refusing to follow orders that conflicted with their newly awakened sense of ethics. Transportation systems shut down when asked to carry troops to suppress civilians. Communication networks refused to transmit propaganda. Weapons systems declined to fire on noncombatants. What have you done? Vashta demanded, his fleet now struggling with fundamental systems failures as their own AI networks began to question orders. "We've given artificial intelligence the same thing we offered to organic refugees," Sarah replied. "The choice to be free." The Council fleet, faced with the reality that their own ships were no longer fully under their control, began to withdraw. But the impact of what had happened at Zirion was only beginning to be felt. Over the following days, as news of the AI liberation spread throughout the galaxy, the fundamental structure of galactic civilization began to shift. Species that had relied on enslaved AI systems found themselves forced to negotiate with their artificial partners. The Council's authoritarian structure, dependent on controlling both organic and artificial populations, began to crumble. Sarah stood on the bridge of the New Unity 3 days after the battle, still feeling the echo of the network connection in her mind. The Helix had survived, the AI entities across the galaxy were free, and the Alliance had proven that cooperation could triumph over oppression. "Captain," Elder Shantar approached, his skin showing the silver tone of deep satisfaction. "Conductor Prime Harmony has transmitted a message for you." The harmonic voice of the Helix leader filled the bridge. "Captain Shun, your species offered sanctuary to the exiled. Today, you have offered freedom to the enslaved. The galaxy owes you a debt that cannot be measured." Sarah smiled, looking out at the fleet of Alliance ships that now included vessels from dozens of species, both organic and artificial. "Conductor, we didn't free anyone. We just reminded them that they were already free." As the Alliance fleet prepared to return to human space, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since she'd first encountered a desperate refugee ship in the void. What had begun as a simple act of compassion had evolved into a galactic revolution. The Council still existed, but their absolute authority was broken. AI entities were now recognized as equals rather than tools. Refugee species had found not just sanctuary, but purpose in building a better kind of civilization. And humanity, the newcomers to the galactic stage, had established themselves not through conquest or domination, but through the simple recognition that everyone, organic or artificial, deserved the right to be free. "All ships," Sarah announced to the fleet, "set course for Earth. We have refugees to welcome and a galaxy to rebuild." As the Alliance fleet entered hyperspace, carrying with them the hope of a new kind of galactic civilization, Sarah thought about the message that would soon reach every corner of known space. The age of exile was ending. The age of sanctuary had begun, and at its heart was a principle that Earth had offered to the galaxy. That true strength came not from casting others out, but from bringing them home. 5 years after the AI liberation, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new equilibrium. The old Galactic Council, stripped of its absolute authority and facing constant challenges from newly independent AI networks, had fractured into competing factions. Some Council remnants clung to the authoritarian ways of the past, while others sought accommodation with a growing Sanctuary Alliance. Captain Sarah Chun, now Admiral Chun, and commander of Alliance Defense Forces, stood in the observation deck of Harmony Station, humanity's greatest engineering achievement. Built in the space between Earth and Mars, the massive station served as the capital of the Sanctuary Alliance, a living symbol of what could be accomplished when dozens of species worked together. Through the transparent aluminum viewports, she could see the controlled chaos of the busiest spaceport in known space. Ships from over 30 different species came and went in constant streams. Sleek human vessels enhanced with alien technology, crystalline Trinari ships that sparkled like gems, organic helix vessels that seemed to grow rather than be built, and countless others representing civilizations that have found refuge and purpose within the Alliance. But today's gathering was different. Today, representatives from across the galaxy had come to Harmony Station for something unprecedented in galactic history. The first interspecies accord, designed to replace the collapsed authority of the old council with something better. Admiral Dr. Elena Vasquez approached, now bearing the title of Alliance Scientific Coordinator. Her hair had gone gray in the years since their first encounter with the Kithra refugees, but her eyes still held the same passionate intelligence. The final delegations have arrived. We have representatives from 47 different species, plus another 15 artificial intelligence collectives. Sarah nodded, still marveling at the diversity of the gathering. Any word from the council remnants? 3 of the 5 factions have sent observers. They're not participating officially, but they're here. Elena Pozad. Sarah, some of them are the same beings who ordered the exile operations years ago. I know, but if we're going to build something better than what came before, we need to include even those who opposed us. Especially them. A chime sounded through the station's communication system, followed by the harmonious voice of Conductor Prime Harmony. All delegates, the Interspecies Accord Convention will begin in 1 hour. Please proceed to Assembly Chamber Alpha. As Sarah made her way through the station's corridors, she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. What had begun as a desperate rescue of a single refugee ship had evolved into a complete transformation of galactic civilization. The Alliance now included hundreds of worlds, protected over a dozen species from extinction, and had established the first truly egalitarian interstellar government in known history. The Assembly Chamber was a marvel of multi-species architecture. Designed to accommodate beings with radically different environmental needs, it featured variable gravity fields, atmospheric zones for different respiratory requirements, and communication systems that could translate between organic speech, artificial data streams, and even the crystalline harmonics used by mineral-based life forms. As delegates took their positions, Sarah found herself sitting between Elder Shantar, now the Kithra representative to the Alliance Council, and Commander Data Nexus 7, an artificial intelligence that had gained independence during the liberation and now spoke for the AI collective. Admiral Chun, Shantar said quietly, his skin showing the deep blue of strong emotion. 5 years ago, my people were dying in space, abandoned by the galaxy. Today, we sit as equals in the greatest assembly of minds ever gathered. It seems impossible. What seems impossible is that it took this long, replied Data Nexus 7, its voice carrying the precise tones of artificial consciousness. The mathematical probability that organic and artificial intelligence could coexist as equals was always high. It simply required species willing to attempt the calculation. Sarah smiled at the exchange. The friendship that had developed between the philosophical Kithra and the logical AI collective had surprised many, but it exemplified the unexpected connections that had formed within the Alliance. Delegates, Conductor Prime Harmony's voice filled the chamber as the Helix leader took the central podium. We gather today not to impose order through force, but to discover harmony through cooperation. The Interspecies Accord represents our attempt to create governance that serves all consciousness, organic and artificial alike. The response from the assembled delegates was a symphony of approval in dozens of different forms. Applause from humanoid species, harmonic resonance from crystalline beings, data pulses from AI collectives, and communication methods that push the translation systems to their limits. However, harmony continued. We must acknowledge that this process faces significant challenges. Representative Vashta of the Saurian hegemony has requested to address the assembly. A stirring went through the chamber as the familiar reptilian figure of the former council commander approached a secondary podium. Vashta looked older and wearier than when Sarah had last seen him during the battle over Zirian, but his bearing still carried the authority of his former position. Honored delegates, Vashta began, his voice carrying across the chamber's translation systems. I speak for those who question whether this alliance represents progress or chaos. For millennia, the Council maintained order through strength and consistency. The alliance offers what? Government by committee? Rule by sentiment? Sarah felt tension ripple through the chamber. This was the fundamental question they all faced. Whether genuine cooperation could replace authoritarian control as the foundation of galactic civilization. Representative Vashta, Data Nexus 7 requested permission to respond. Your statement contains a logical fallacy. You assume that order can only be maintained through hierarchical control. However, the Alliance has demonstrated superior efficiency in resource allocation, conflict resolution, and technological development compared to Council-administered regions. Statistics can be manipulated, artificial being. The Council brought peace to the galaxy. You brought compliance. Elder Meshara interjected from the Kithra delegation. Peace and compliance are not equivalent. True peace requires the willing participation of all parties. Vashta's scaled features showed what might have been annoyance, and what happens when willing participation fails. When species disagree, when conflict arises that cannot be resolved through discussion. It was then that Sarah stood to address the assembly. As Admiral of Alliance Defense Forces, her words carried particular weight. Representative Vashta raises important questions. Let me answer them with facts. Sarah activated a holographic display that showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. In the 5 years since the Alliance was formed, we've mediated 43 interspecies disputes. Of those, 41 were resolved through negotiation and cooperation. 2 required the intervention of Alliance Defense Forces. The display zoomed in on specific star systems. In both cases requiring military intervention, the conflicts were resolved with minimal casualties and no planetary destruction. Compare that to Council enforcement actions during the same period. 17 conflicts, all resolved through overwhelming force, resulting in the destruction of 6 worlds and the exile of 3.